Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Indianapolis Post. I about said State Police Alliance. We're brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. Thank you so much for tuning into our show. We appreciate the Indiana State Police Alliance and Tom Trial for putting us out each and every week that we're do the road show here. So thank you to those folks. I've got Nikki Crawford here with me today. First Sergeant Nikki Crawford from the Indiana State Police Meth Suppression Section. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you for being here. Pull that mic a little bit closer there to you so we can hear everything you've got to say about this, because this is going to be a good topic here that we're going to talk about. Meth. We're fighting a battle here, aren't we, in Indiana?
We are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are, indeed.
So how long have you been with the state police?
21 years.
And started out where at?
Started out at Bremen.
Okay.
Then I went to Putnamville.
Did the road patrol done a little bit of kind of undercover and stuff up there too? Up in
Did
Bremen?
some community policing work. Went to undercover. Started there about 14 years ago, and I've been with the Meth Suppression Section almost 10 years.
Wow.
So we were on. I was fortunate to be on the ground floor when they started the full-time section. So.
Okay, because was it 2000 or when was it that the Crawfordsville deal started when we started with the meth, actually?
Well, the state police started with meth almost 25 years ago. We created our first team and got our first people certified in 1991.
Okay.
So we had 8 people on the agency, both civilian chemists as well as enforcement personnel that went to school, got certified, and then we've just grown since then. And so we started back in 91. And the full-time section we started organizing it in 2005, shortly after the first law was signed by the governor at that time to put pseudoephedrine behind the counter. Okay,
all right. And at that time, and probably still now today, is there still what you're fighting pretty much the same type of meth labs that we're looking at as when it started?
No, we've seen an evolution, just like anything else in crime. Criminals are always trying to figure out a way to do better and make it easier.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing that we've seen. So we've seen a transition mostly in the types of cook processes that they use. The vast majority back in the late 90s and early 2000s was what we would call the Nazi method. It's technically called the Birch reduction, which used the anhydrous ammonia. So that's what a lot of people were familiar with. And the process that we see today is the exact same chemistry, except they've just switched out some of the chemicals. And so now we see a lot of these one pot or shake and bake. And so they've taken a 3 to 4 step process and basically pared it down to 2 steps, taken it from about 3 to 4 hours down to about 45 minutes to an hour. The dope they're making is just as good, but it's a lot quicker. It's a lot easier. Yeah, it's the same product. They get a pretty good return on their investment when they get the pseudoephedrine.
So is this regionally? Is this north, south, central Indiana? We like to do this up here. We like this method down here, or is it throughout the state?
You know what? If we were talking back 1991 to probably 1997, 1998, it was regional. It was very regional, basically from Terre Haute to Evansville. That's where your meth labs were. But now it's all over the entire state. If you look at, we have all of our stats on the website. And so if you go there and you look at the state map over the last 10 years, you'll see that those top 10 counties that we have noted on that map are all over the place, from the Michigan border to the Kentucky border, and everywhere in between. So it's not really a regional issue. It's pervasive pretty much in most communities.
Do you find that this is a family thing? Is this the people that are doing this, or they're returning to do this? I know, and we'll get in talking about this a little bit on what it does to you and why you keep wanting to do it, and how it affects your body and things. But what do we need to break the cycle here?
Treatment is a big thing. Okay. I mean, we really do need treatment programs. A lot of the drug courts and whatnot are finding some success, but meth is one of the harder drugs to treat because of the way that it works on the brain. And without going into the science of everything specifically, any substance that you use that is addictive, from nicotine to alcohol to meth, all affect the pleasure and reward center of the brain, which is where dopamine is produced. And of all the drugs that we see out there, whether they're legal or illegal, dopamine is the amount of dopamine that's dropped into the body from methamphetamine is 100 times more than any others. And you can find a lot of the studies on the internet, but it's an enormous amount of dopamine. And so literally, if you just look at the physical response, it makes them feel good. And it makes them feel better than anything has ever made them feel before. Not just, and it's a natural chemical that we all have in our body, but because so much of it is dumped into the body, and the other sad part is the first high is the best high they'll ever get. Because while it dumps the dopamine in the body, the other thing meth does is it blocks the receptors for the body to uptake that dopamine. And that causes two things. One, it causes the brain damage. Okay. And it kills the brain cells. But the other thing that it does is it actually, that first high you get is the best high, because the more you use, one, your body can't keep up with producing that amount of dopamine. And two, it blocks the receptors for the body to be able to uptake and use that dopamine in the way that it's supposed to.
So they're always searching for that high, but they're never going to get it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, again, you're tuned into the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids. I'm talking to First Sergeant Nikki Crawford here from the Indiana State Police Meth Suppression section, and we're talking about meth. We've got summer coming up. People are going to start getting out, hitting the trails, hitting the woods. What should people be aware of on what you're talking about, maybe meth labs that they might find either active or abandoned out there?
We find a lot of labs out in woods, especially our two busiest times of the year seem to be March Madness. Isn't just for basketball, just so you all know. It's meth March Madness as well. March always tends to be one of our bigger months, as well as September and October, because hunting season. People are getting out. The weather's changing. You know, people are trying to beat cabin fever and get out. Yeah. So in terms of what they should look for, pseudoephedrine boxes and blister packs, lithium battery casings and the strippings from the inside of the batteries. So not
actual batteries you're talking about?
Correct. They'll have stripped the batteries. Okay. They'll have
stripped. You're talking about open them up?
Right. They'll break the seal on the battery. They'll pull them apart, and basically what's inside a lithium battery or most batteries is kind of like a fruit roll-up. Okay. When you pull it out, there's going to be a layer of white plastic, there's going to be a layer of carbon, and then there'll be a layer of lithium in there, and they pull that layer of lithium out. So what you're going to see discarded are generally rectangle-shaped pieces of white plastic from inside the batteries, and then broken open battery casings. You'll see lye, which is a drain cleaner. You'll also see sulfuric acid, which is a different kind of drain cleaner. Salt. You'll see salt containers. You can also see the cold packs that you can buy at Walmart, any one of your pharmacies or stores like that. The cold packs where you pop the water bladder inside, and it makes it cold, and you put it on, your bruise or your boo-boo on your head or whatever it might be. You'll see those, but they'll be cut open, and the pellets that are inside will be poured out. And you may just see the water bladders laying around. Pop bottles. Pop bottles that have a white or an off-white solid in them with black flecks, or pop bottles that have plastic tubing coming out of the lids of the bottles that have kind of a white or an off-white solid kind of chunky material in the bottom. Any of those items that you see out could be indicative of a meth lab. So you're talking the
plastic pop bottles, not the glass ones.
Typically not glass. Occasionally we see people do a one-pot cook in a glass jar, but what the problem is it builds up a lot of pressure, and they have a hard time getting the lid off. Okay. So more often we'll see plastic pop bottles. Typically, if it's a one-pot lab, it'll be in a thicker plastic, like not a water bottle. It'll be a Gatorade bottle or a Powerade bottle. Those bottles that have a thicker plastic to them than some of your water bottles today, and even some of the pop bottles.
Now, when you guys go out and do these labs, I know they're extremely dangerous. No matter what, they're active or they've been active or they're possibly getting started. You guys have to wear special suits, respirators, that type of stuff. Very expensive, but I mean, it's not something for the layman to go up and clean these up.
Right. We don't want you, if you find one in your ditch, if you find one in your farm field, if you find one on your path out in the woods, please don't clean it up. The other thing that we like the public to know is because of these one pots, and 90% of the labs that we're working today are one pot labs.
90%?
90%. If you see a backpack that's been basically looks like it's been thrown out on the side of the road, before you even open it, the first thing you should think is meth lab. We have seen a number of meth labs in backpacks that had just been thrown out of a window of a vehicle or, something like that, or just dumped in a wooded area. And they're very dangerous. We've even, had situations where we're cleaning up a lab, we think we're done, and all of a sudden something catches fire. Because you're mixing water-reactive metals with water, and you've also have an oxidizer in there, which the simple way to think of an oxidizer is oxygen is fuel to a fire. And so an oxidizer brings fuel to the party. And so it's going to add that additional oxygen to that fire. So these are very dangerous. And the gases, especially in the hydrochloric acid gas generators that will have the plastic tubing coming out of the pop bottle, that gas is extremely dangerous. It is one of the more dangerous chemicals and vapors that we deal with at meth labs.
So you've talked a lot about the backpacks. Are those the carrier, the place for the storage? They're not actually the meth lab themselves, right? There's something inside the backpack?
They're both.
Really?
They will have, we have found actively cooking one pots in people's pants pockets, in their coat pockets, in their backpacks, underneath the seat in their vehicles. We find them everywhere. You have to think about a 20-ounce pop bottle is used as a meth lab. And there are all kinds of places you can hide those things or store them or keep them. The baby's diaper bag. We found them in baby's diaper bags.
And that's
purses.
Another thing we can have another whole show about is the CHINS cases have just went off the chart, haven't they? Yeah.
In many counties, the vast majority of the children that are being placed because of either meth manufacturing or meth addiction.
Yeah. That's what that's the numbers I've been seeing on the statistics that you've been put out here on this. People want more information on this. Do we have a website that they can go to? And I'm sure there's all this list of stuff that we've talked about that they can get all this information.
We do. We have a meth website. It's meth.in.gov is the easiest way to find it. On that website, we have listed all the laws that are associated with meth. We've got photographs. We have a lot of handouts that we've printed. So if you want to look at those handouts, they're available in PDF. You can download them and look at them. If you have a group that you want to do a program for, our contact information for our office is there. We can hook you up with somebody to come in and do an educational program. And then we also have a tip line that is available for people to call and leave a tip if they think there's meth manufacturing going on in their community. It's 1-800-453-4756.
And that can be any type of, actually not just meth, but any type of drug activities.
Yeah, and the people who answer those calls make sure that they take the information, they do research on that information, and then if it's a meth lab, they'll send it to us. If it's another drug tip, they'll send it to the drug enforcement section. Whatever tip that comes in on that line, they make sure that it gets to the right people.
Now, we got about 2 minutes left here, Nick, but are we the only ones doing cleanup now, or are there still some other agencies that are doing cleanups throughout Indiana?
The state police responds to about 97% of the labs in the state. There are a lot of local officers at local agencies, county and city, that are certified, but the only agency right now that works labs without the state police is the Fort Wayne Police Department. Okay. We still work a lot of labs with them and do investigations together, but we do work labs with local officers. It's just that we have the safety vehicles and we have the equipment and the supplies that they need under OSHA to properly process one of these crime scenes, and so we share that off of our safety vehicles with other agencies. So it's really a big collaborative effort across the state. Even though we have the safety vehicles and we have 130 people that are certified, there's also about 150 other officers from other agencies. And so it's really a very much not only in just the cleanup of the crime scenes, but the investigations themselves. It's really a collaborative effort amongst all police agencies.
About 30 seconds left. Mom and Dad always ask this question: what should I look for if I suspect my child or somebody of meth?
Bad sleeping patterns. They're not going to be sleeping and they're not going to be eating. You're really going to notice their personal hygiene is going to be reduced. They are going to start losing weight. And then once they get deeper into the addiction, you'll see more of the obvious signs that you see on television on the faces of meth, where their teeth start to rot. The chemicals eat away the enamel at their teeth. They start to get the sores. Meth causes acne, so they'll have an increase in acne initially, and then an increase in sores and body, and just really their physical well-being. You can just see it on them, the weight loss.
They've concentrated on the drug.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks, Nick, for coming in. I appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Great information. Welcome.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Again, this has been the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm Sergeant Rich Myers. Thanks for being in here with us today. Make sure you keep those kids buckled up, stay buckled up yourself, and have a great week. We'll talk to you again next week. Roadshow out.